Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 29 team selection. I'm not on my free hit this week, so we'll discuss what I'm planning on doing with my transfers and how many players I'll be able to field. If you do enjoy today's video and you get any use out of it, please do smash that like button. And if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, very briefly, just reviewing Game Week 28. On the back of a -12, and I didn't think I would ever say this, I've actually managed to get a green arrow this week. So I scored 73 points. With the -12, that was a net 61 points, which was enough to take me from 103k to about 91k. So, I mean, I'm absolutely delighted with that. I never thought in a million years I would get close to a green. And I kind of accepted. I was like, do you know what? If I'm around 140, 150k after that -12, I'll be happy. Because the -12 wasn't just for 28. It was also to set me up to not use my free hit in 29 and to put my team in a decent position for 30. So really, the -12 was a 3-week hit. But in the week that you take such a big hit, you do not expect a green arrow. So I will run with that, and I am very, very happy. Just on the actual -12, Neto, Doughty, Morris, and Bowen came in. So those 4 players. And you can see they scored 4, 5, 2, and 4. So they didn't necessarily do particularly well. But the 4 players that I removed all blanked. So I am currently 5 points down, if I've done my maths correctly, on that hit. So I would be 5 points better off if I hadn't taken the -12. But remember that I also now get 3 extra fixtures in 29 with Doughty, Bowen and Morris. And I get Neto's better fixture in 30 than Kelleher. So essentially, it won't be possible to see whether the -12 was worth it until after Game Week 30. But if Doughty, Bowen and Morris simply just turn up and get me 2 points apiece, after Game Week 29, I will be 1 point better off having taken the -12. And also I would have been able to keep both my wildcard and my free hit. So I am largely at this stage calling this a success. I'm not saying it was a resounding success and everyone should take a -12. But it does just go to show that there are multiple ways to play this game. Other people would have taken no hits. Other people would have brought in triple Bournemouth defence. Other people would have decided to bring in other single Game Week players. Some will play their free hit, some won't. But all of those strategies can work for you. I've seen people that are free hitting in 29 do very well this week by loading up on Zabani and Solanke, and people like me have done very well by loading up on Doughty and maybe bringing in Morris, who's now got not only outscored Haaland in Game Week 28, but he's got an extra fixture in 29. So I just want to say that even if a strategy seems stupid on paper and people are berating you for it, you just never know how it's going to turn out. But the reason really for the green arrow, apart from just getting extra points from Neto, Doughty, Morris, is really the 3 single Game Week players on the left-hand side of your screen, which was Porro, Palmer and Son. Between them, they got me 37 points. And whilst I expected Palmer to do well, that I'm not very surprised about. And I know that Son against Villa, it is his sort of game. I was not expecting that many points from the 3 of them. Really, the thing that shot me up the rankings was that Porro 7-pointer, because pretty much everyone sold or benched him. Not many people had Spurs defence starting. And when we talk about the value of saving the free hit or using it, if I'd have wildcarded in 28, I wouldn't have started Porro. And if I was free hitting in 29, I would have sold Porro long ago. So there are sometimes these random advantages or disadvantages that you get from a certain chip strategy. But Son and Palmer also, like I said, massively contributing for me because only 50% of people at my rank own Palmer and only about 50% own Son. So they gave me a massive rank boost. So no, it wasn't the -12 itself that boosted me, but to get a green arrow this week, it was absolutely delightful. Very lucky, you could say, or fortunate that both Foden and Haaland blanked because they were the main threats for me. I benched Foden, I sold Haaland. I'll probably be selling Foden this week as well. So I do like taking risks, and I am happy getting aggressive and taking hits, and hopefully that is slightly refreshing because I think it's a little bit stale at the moment with everyone making optimal transfers, no one wanting to take too many hits, everyone on the same chip strategy. So I've just taken a -12. I'm not free hitting in 29. I'm definitely not on the same strategy as other people. So with that being said, let's now take a look at the way the team does look set up after that -12 for Game Week 29. For Game Week 29, a very brief announcement. I will not be doing a deadline stream for Game Week 29, and don't worry, I've not just binged you off. I've actually been invited onto Sky Sports to do their FPL show from 10:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. So feel free to tune into that if you have access to Sky. And I just wanted to say a massive thank you for watching my videos because I wouldn't have been invited on if you guys didn't watch me every week. And hopefully that'll be a pretty cool experience being on live TV, which will be my very first time. So definitely tune into that. Hopefully I don't embarrass myself as I often do on the live streams, but it does sadly mean, which I don't enjoy doing, I won't be able to deadline stream because I'll be at these Sky Studios in London on Saturday. So hopefully that is clear. No deadline stream from me, but you can of course tune into many of the other brilliant content creators' deadline streams, and I will be back for Game Week 30. But with Game Week 29 in mind, I go into Game Week 29 with 10.5 million in the bank and 1 free transfer. So lots of flexibility with money. Money's not going to be an issue for me this week, as is the case for pretty much everyone. I do only have the 1 free transfer though, and I know I've just taken a -12, but I am considering taking another -4. I don't think there is a situation which would force me to take more than a -4. Even if a couple of my players get miraculously injured before that, I think I'll just field less players. But with that -4, I should be able to get to 11, as you'll see in a second. So, in goal, I've got Areola. It's going to be a little bit shorter today because it's not like, do I play this player? Do I play that player? Do I sell them? If they've got a fixture, they play. On Areola, though, and on the goalkeepers in general, I'm not too displeased because I don't see a standout goalkeeper. Everyone's going for Flecken on free hit, but Brentford have not been brilliant defensively. They've got pretty much their entire back line out injured. And actually, Burnley have looked a little bit better recently. I actually quite like the idea of a Fofana on a free hit, but I wouldn't be surprised if Brentford concede. Would I be surprised if Aston Villa concede? No. So I'm not saying that Areola would be first choice on a free hit, but in a week where I don't think there's a standout keeper, Areola makes a hell of a lot of saves. He's a good penalty stopper, as we've seen recently. They're playing at home. I'm actually pretty happy having Areola. Again, I wouldn't have him on a free hit, but I'm not too displeased to have him in my actual team. And then I have got 4 defenders, and no, in an ideal world, I wouldn't have 4. I'd have 3, and I'd have 1 extra attacker. But a few of these defenders aren't too bad. Pedro Porro, again, would probably be on my free hit. I'd at least have a Spurs defender of some kind. He's very attacking. We've seen he's good for bonus points. He still takes some set pieces, even though Maddison is now back. I really like Pedro Porro. I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet. But in all honesty, I did a prediction over on Twitter. I don't think there'll be any clean sheets this week. And if there are, I'm not entirely sure who it will go to. But Pedro Porro is there for the attacking threat. And it's a very similar situation with Doughty. I would not expect Doughty to keep a clean sheet. We saw how bad Luton were defensively in that second half against Bournemouth. I think he could concede 2, 3, 4 goals. I would definitely have a Luton attacker on my free hit. But Doughty is there for the attacking threat. And again, I still think a lot of people will include him in their teams. So I actually think Areola, who is, I think you could pick any keeper this week, and it's just luck of the draw. And then Porro and Doughty, they are absolutely fine. The other 2 players, yeah, they're not particularly optimal. You wouldn't want them if you could choose to. But equally, could I expect them to get something? Maybe less so Charlie Taylor, but Pau Torres could. And again, I'm seeing lots of people on their free hits pick the likes of Moreno and Luca Dean, and maybe even go for a Matty Cash. I would be tempted by a Moreno or a Luca Dean if you are on your free hit. And Pau Torres, no, doesn't have the attacking threat. In fact, he has very little attacking threat. But you never know. And if they do keep a clean sheet, I will be absolutely laughing. But Pau Torres, I'm hoping more than anything, he plays, starts, and gets me 2. If he can get me 2 points, I'd be pretty happy with that. I'm just trying to get as many appearance points as possible to not fall too far behind. Charlie Taylor, I'm not having the slander that I'm seeing on this man. He is a player. I know we're expecting Brentford to score 2, 3, 4 goals. He's probably going to get me a maximum of 1 point. But it doesn't mean that he doesn't exist and he doesn't count. Could you see a situation where Charlie Taylor gets an assist or something? I wouldn't be completely shocked. Again, I'm not expecting Brentford to go out there and score like 7 goals against Burnley. And if they do, then you can all laugh at me. But Charlie Taylor actually against Bournemouth a couple of game weeks ago, he got, was it a couple of game weeks ago? Yeah, in game week 27. He got 0.34 expected assist. He created 1 big chance. He whipped in the ball. Can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Fofana that just nodded the ball, but he was so close to an assist. I'm not saying I expect assist. I'm not saying I expect a clean sheet. I'm not saying I even deserve one having Taylor in my team, but I wouldn't also say that he doesn't count as a player. I think that's rather ridiculous. He is a player and he could get me something. But realistically, I'm happy that I have a goalkeeper. I'm happy that I'm covering Porro and Doughty, who I think will be very popular on free hits. And at least I've got 2 extra defenders in Pau and Taylor. And you just never know in a given game week if any of them will get something. So I'm actually relatively happy with the defence. Gabriel is my 5th defender. I won't make a defender transfer this week regardless of what happens. If Porro gets injured, I probably still won't take him out. If anything happens to my defence, I just wouldn't remove them because I think, considering the lack of attackers that I've got currently, I would rather just make more transfers in the attack. If I ended up getting like 3 or 4 players injured, maybe I would take an extra hit, but it would still be for an attacker. So the defence is probably going to stay how it is. Let's now move on to the midfield. So guys, moving on to the midfielders and the forwards, if it feels like there was a random cut and that the lighting and the camera don't look the same, that's because there was. I actually tried recording this video before the Aston Villa game, which was a rookie mistake. And obviously there was a big thing that happened in the Villa game, which is Ollie Watkins picked up an injury and came off injured in the first half. So I'm going to discuss my midfielders and forwards all together because I actually only have 4 that are currently playing, which means I could bring in 3 players technically to field 7 attackers and bench 1 defender. But ideally the plan has always been just to remove Foden and Solanke. Son, Bowen, Watkins, Morris, I was very happy having those 4. And whilst I do have a bit of money tied up in Foden and Solanke, I'm not 100% sure that I definitely want them on my wildcard in 31, and therefore I'm okay removing them. And if I do want them back, my team value isn't too bad, so I feel like I can maybe accept the fact that I'll lose a bit of money and still put together a fairly good wildcard draft. So very briefly on the players that will be fine. Son is going to be my captain this week. I actually, in the stuff that I recorded previously, which you'll now never see, I went on a rant about how I think Ollie Watkins is a brilliant captaincy option for Game Week 29. And if you're looking to go away from the likes of Son, Watkins could be a really nice option. But sadly, now he is not, because even if he is fit, there's just too many doubts around him. You could go for someone like an Ivan Toney, absolutely. But for me, Son just feels like the obvious captain, mainly because he's a midfielder. And I always prefer, especially when they're on penalties, captaining a midfielder. Extra point for a goal, extra point for a clean sheet. As we've said on a few occasions, the maximum that a midfielder can score is 11 points with 1 goal. The maximum that a forward can score with 1 goal is 9 points. So I always just feel like midfielders have to do far less to get a big score. And we've seen, only last week, that Son has that 17-pointer in his locker. And whilst the likes of Ollie Watkins and Toney do have that, I just feel like they have to do a hell of a lot more. So Son will be my captain this week. I definitely do believe he is the best captain, but you could, by all means, go away from that. Jared Bowen, goal and an assist in Europe tonight. So really, really good performance from it. And that is frustrating for those of us that owned him in Game Week 28 against Burnley. I don't think this is a perfect fixture, but I also don't think it's a bad fixture for Jared Bowen. Aston Villa have injuries in their defence and their midfield. They are certainly not a team that is watertight at the back. And this just feels like a fixture where, Villa push up the pitch. Jared Bowen could get in behind. And we saw West Ham is scoring goals at the moment. They scored 5 against Freiburg. So I do think this is a game where Bowen could get you something. But I wouldn't go as far as saying Bowen is essential on a free hit or is essential that you bring him in. I think there are plenty of midfielders that could do just as well as Jared Bowen. But for me, in the position that I'm in currently, Jared Bowen is absolutely fine. And on Carlton Morris, I think he was actually quite unlucky not to get more in Game Week 28. He almost had a total of 1 XG across the 2 games. He had a couple of decent chances as well. And I think in another double game week, he comes away with 1 return and we're looking at maybe like 10 to 11 points. And I think in that situation, you're like, do you know what? It was a brilliant decision to bring him in. I know a lot of people will be looking now at Morris on their free hit. I certainly don't mind it. But again, as I said with Bowen, Morris wouldn't be in the essential category for me. I suppose if Watkins is ruled out, which we'll discuss in a second, then that might make you lean more towards Morris. But if you're going with Watkins and probably Toney, I don't feel like Morris is a definite set for the third forward. And again, you could go for a 3-5-2, in which case you wouldn't even really need to worry about the third forward. But in my situation, once again, I am happy having him. I spoke about the fact that I think Forest are pretty good defensively all week, and I don't think Luton will score many goals in this game. But all he needs is 1. 1 goal, he could come away with 9 points, and he's on penalties. I don't mind owning Morris. Now, the fourth player that I did have was Ollie Watkins. I'm recording this directly after the Aston Villa game, so I've got 2 different quotes here from Emery, which I'll read off. So the first one was that we don't know exactly what the issue is. Maybe for Sunday he could be available. And then he went on to say that Diego Carlos much less likely to be available. But then after that, another quote came out, and I saw this one on TNT Sports. He said he could be available for Sunday, but it is only a cut. We will wait and see tomorrow and Saturday. We are speaking before each match about how important Ollie Watkins is. There was, I don't know if that's exactly it. Basically, Emery's accent was extremely strong when he said but it was only a cut. I think he said the injury is a cut or something like that. But essentially what he was saying was it was a cut. There was also a quote that came out from Leon Bailey on TNT Sports, where Leon Bailey said it was a really nasty looking wound. So it sounds like rather than him twisting it, rather than it being like a dead leg, it sounds like he's just cut his knee. You might think that's a really good thing. And my initial instinct is, well, that means he's probably not out long term and he has a good chance of making the game on Sunday. But if it's a really bad cut, he's going to have probably a lot of stitches in his knee and you just can't really run the risk of reopening that up. So if it is a really bad cut, it could be just as bad as any other injury and probably does put him out of action on Sunday. My general opinion on this, especially in a situation like mine, I'm just going to keep him. Even if it looks like there's absolutely no chance of him playing, I don't really want to take a -8 this week. So in which case, I'll still keep Watkins. I'll still probably make the planned moves. And I'll just have to accept that I've only got 10 players this week. Maybe even less if anything else crops up. But I just don't think for me, I want to take another hit to remove Watkins. There just aren't many forwards outside of Ivan Toney that I really want in my team. So for me, my current opinion on this, as of Thursday at about midnight, is I'd like to keep Ollie Watkins, but let's hope and pray that he's available. Even on free hit, there's definitely some justification to just say, pick Ollie Watkins, but then pick a really good 5th sub. fifth sub, fifth midfielder, who would be your first sub. So let's say you're playing a 3-4-3, just picking someone like a Gibbs White as your first sub, because I kind of feel like if Ollie Watkins is available, he starts. Because it's a cut, it's not going to be like, oh, could he play, can't he play? If the cut is fine, he'll play, and if it's not, then he just won't. So I feel like with Watkins, you'll get 90 minutes probably, or you'll get 0 minutes. So I think you're still fine picking Watkins, and just make sure you have a strong first sub. So what that basically comes down to for me is I then have Foden and Solanke, who I'm happy removing. The reason I'm not going to remove Palmer and Saka, I actually have money tied up in Foden, Solanke, Palmer, and Saka. I think in Foden, Palmer, and Saka, I have 0.3 tied up in all three. And then in Solanke, I've currently got 0.2. So if I sell any of them and want to buy them back, I will lose money. But as I said, my team value is pretty good anyway. It's up at 106.3 million, so I'm perfectly happy seeing my team value that high. Not as high as some people. FPL Pickle, my girlfriend, her team value is 107 million. So I'm not saying it's the highest team value in the world, but it's good enough that if I do get a bit of a loss on Foden having to buy him back, I still think I can build a pretty good wildcard in 31. So those are the two that I would like to sell, because Palmer and Saka I know I want on my wildcard. Foden and Solanke less sure. And really, the Solanke move for me is kind of obvious. I think Tony's the only forward that I'm really interested in for this week and next week. I do like Muniz. I think you could go for a Wood or an Awoniyi if you think they're going to start, but I need them for 29 and 30. This isn't a free hit for me. And so it was probably Muniz or Tony, and I just think Tony is a proven asset. He's on penalties. He's got Burnley this week. Just don't overthink it. Go for Ivan Tony. So Solanke to Tony is almost definitely going to be a transfer for me, which then leaves Foden. And in that midfield spot, I've actually got a few players that I'm looking at. West Ham looked very good tonight. So Kudus, whilst his data isn't there, he's always passing the eye test. And in a single week, you just never know. I was interested in Paqueta, but it looks like he picked up maybe a small injury in the West Ham game. I haven't seen an update on that, but Moyes, I think, basically said that he had to take him off because he didn't want to risk it. So maybe he'll be available, but that's a slight doubt, so I probably won't go there. You've got Gibbs White and Alanga at Nottingham Forest. I've said throughout this video and in previous videos that I think Forest will actually score a couple of goals against Luton at least. And I think the game itself maybe suits Alanga more, but Gibbs White will be more secure for minutes. But Alanga and Gibbs White could be really decent options. And then really the one that I'm probably most interested in is James Maddison. I look at James Maddison and I just think Fulham and Luton playing really well. Spurs are scoring goals. I don't have triple Spurs as things stand. It feels like a player that a lot of people will have on their free hits. Just get James Maddison. Again, might be the obvious transfer, but in some weeks I'll go crazy and I won't do the obvious thing. And in some weeks you just look at it and think, you've got a midfield spot and a forward spot, Maddison and Tony in for a -4. So let's take a look at how the team will look with those transfers, and then look ahead to game week 30 and why I currently plan on wildcarding in 31 and not 30. So guys, this is the way that the team will look with those two transfers, Maddison and Tony coming in. If Watkins is available for 29, which I of course don't know right now, I will have 11 players. If Watkins is not available, then I will have 10 players. I don't currently plan on making a transfer. Even if Watkins is confirmed out, I'll just have to accept that I won't have a full 11 and I might fall slightly further behind the free hitters than I first planned. But that is what it is. It was one of the benefits of free hitting. So if you're free hitting, you're probably pretty happy about the potential of those of us that aren't free hitting losing a player. So it's one of those things, but let's, fingers crossed, say that Ollie Watkins might potentially be available. So if I jump over to Fantasy Football Hub then, I just wanted to show you with those two, the team's looking pretty good. My team rating is apparently 100% according to Fantasy Football Hub, which I love. So that's the way the team will look, hopefully 11 players. I just wanted to show you, lots of people are asking about Game Week 30 wildcard versus Game Week 31. The reason I'm currently not planning on wildcarding in 30 is because the team actually looks very, very good. We've got triple Spurs against Luton, double Aston Villa against Wolves at home. I've already got Palmer in place. Bowen's got an okay fixture. I've got Neto against Everton at home. Really, the only weak spot of this team is I've got Gabriel and Saka against Man City. But remember, if I wildcarded, I would have triple Arsenal, triple City. So I would have even more players in that game in my starting 11. On my wildcard, I will have a maximum of 1 Spurs. And pretty much every wildcard I've looked at based on the projected fixtures, I've actually had 0 Spurs. Because getting Son in this team is really difficult. I don't think Maddison is better than some of the other players that double. And Pedro Porro is very expensive for what he offers. So I would have a maximum of 1 Spurs asset against Luton at home. I wouldn't have any Aston Villa. Aston Villa have no remaining double game weeks. So Pau Torres and Watkins wouldn't be in the team for their good fixtures. I probably wouldn't have Neto either. So I look at the team and I actually think, do you know what? I don't think my team would be stronger if I wildcarded in 30. And remember, I'm going to have roughly 9.3 million, as you can see here, in the bank for game week 30. So I can do, which is the current plan, Bowen to Salah. Salah absolutely smashed it in Europe tonight. He's looking fit. Assuming he is fit and available, I might even bring in and captain Salah. I need to make the transfer first. Make transfer, then I might even captain Salah. Genuinely. Because most people will captain Son. Having a differential captain Salah against Brighton at home, it's a very Salah fixture. I don't mind that. So I think the plan at the moment is to not wildcard in 30 unless something happens over the international break. Let's say Watkins is injured long term. Let's say I pick up one further injury. Then, of course, I probably will just hit the button. The thing I like about Wildcard 31 then is Arsenal have Luton at home, and I would want triple Arsenal. City then have Aston Villa, which isn't an awful fixture. I'll probably go for at least 2 City players, maybe Foden and Haaland. And then Liverpool play against Sheffield United at home. Yes, I'd already have Salah, but I'd like to add a Darwin in there, and I'd like to add a Virgil van Dijk in there. Also, Spurs' fixtures are still fine from them, but you at least get the Luton game. And then if I end up with only one or maybe no Spurs assets, it doesn't feel quite as bad. So I genuinely do believe that 31 is a better week to wildcard for my team, but don't be surprised if I end up playing it in Game Week 30 due to things that happen over the international break. So there we go. That's the way the team looks. Had to re-record all of that because of bloody Ollie Watkins, but hopefully he's available. It doesn't look as serious as we first thought, and if he is available, I should have 11 players this week. So guys, there we have it. That is my Game Week 29 team selection. Another apology that I will not be doing a deadline stream due to being on Sky Sports instead, but hopefully you can understand that it's a good opportunity for me to take, and hopefully you can tune in and watch your boy on Sky Sports. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.